What is going on, guys, and welcome back. My name is Sean Bernard. As always, we are live on PickSwap Media as well as Mo Sports YouTube channel, as well as live on Twitter on the PickSwap Twitter space. So appreciate you for joining us wherever you are at. And I'm not in the best of spirits after initially talking to Matt beforehand, before this Sixers versus Knicks crossover series occurred. Not exactly where I expect to be sitting at this point in time. So, Matt, to throw you right off the rip here, how we feeling? What's the vibe check? And thank you for joining again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I understand that this has been a very kind of touchy subject these past few days. Being quite frank, despite being up 2-0, it's not all sunshine and rainbows on this side. I know a lot of Knicks fans like to take the cake early, celebrating. I think the over-the-top celebrations, I think it comes within every franchise, though. I know everybody celebrates a little bit early. The Knicks fans just have a little bit louder and more boisterous of a fan base than most. So those people tend to stick out a little bit more than others. That being said, I think they're in a great spot, obviously being up 2-0, but the job isn't finished. And the one thing that you don't want to do is let the Sixers come into the game tomorrow and start off hot and give them any kind of glimpse of hope. Right? If you're the New York Knicks, you want to already capitalize off of what you got given to you essentially this past week, and you want to make sure that that team's spirits are entirely crushed. So what I've seen thus far from Jalen Brunson is exactly kind of what you anticipated, early on, was Kelly Oubre was going to come out and he was going to use his wingspan and his length to be a pest to Jalen Brunson. Now, Kyle Lowry isn't necessarily the pest that he was touted as, but I mean, it's tough. You're expecting a 35-year-old to come out and give you incredible playoff minutes. Sometimes that's just not realistic. One thing that does obviously stand out is Tyrese Maxey, who we knew was incredible, but this just shows you now that this regular season, it wasn't a fluke, right? I'm a big Tyrese Halliburton hater. So, I look at his regular season and I'm like, look, Halliburton's first half, great. Second half, he fell off a cliff. And now in the playoffs, that's Siakam's team. Tyrese Maxey, in my opinion, has proved himself not only to be the sole leader and foundation of this team, even beyond Joel Embiid, but I think he is the man on the Sixers. And I think Joel senses that as well. I think as the games progress, obviously he's not 100%, not even nearly. We said 70, I think, the other day. I feel like he might not even be close to 70. It's tough for him, but he's a warrior for even being out there. I mean, it's really like the FMB chance. I get the humor of it, but it's like, look, this guy is playing through probably something that's torn or disrupted, at least within the knee, and he's out here still giving his all and still producing, right? He may not be giving the rebounds that everybody is knowing him to get, but the guy's still a big piece of the offense and is taking a lot of gravity away from the other guys. So despite being up 2-0, you can't come into tomorrow as if there's any difference in the series. It has to be 0-0 still, or honestly, you have to act as if you're down 2-0, because the desperate dog, the hungry dog, is the one that tends to win in these games.
Yeah, I appreciate the mostly level-headed outlook there. And the Joel stuff, I hate how hard I have to fight the pro Joel Embiid just arguments here, and I more so mean that on the Philadelphia side of things than anything. That even to this day, and even this morning, I saw, shout out to Kyle Neubeck for going nuclear on Howard Eskin. I don't know if that reached the New York circles over there, but like, there's still a significant portion of the people like the Joel isn't tough enough. You can never win the postseason with this guy. And I don't know how you could watch those first two games and put really any portion of the blame on Joel Embiid specifically. That there's still plus 17 over these two games in the minutes in which Joel has played. It is not his fault by any means. He's doing everything he can possibly do and more so. And it's clear that, like, I agree, 70% seems high for what percentage it at. And it seems like it's getting worse. Like that game two specifically, he looked pretty sharp in the early minutes of the game, looked good through probably the first quarter, first half even maybe. And then by the second half, you can see that he just didn't have it. And that's not his fault. It's like physically his body failing him. Like the one play, the fast break there where he's trying to hunt it down, trying to kick into sprint, and he just doesn't get it. It's like, dude, if that is like before,
and he still gets off a dime though, like he's still able to make a good play in that position, and it's a testament to his character as a basketball player, and it's also a testament to how the Sixers really need him out there. They trust him, and the thing is, like, if he's not on that floor, he's a DNP that game. I think the whole mojo, even heading into it, oh man, we're at MSG. We're missing Joel Embiid. Not that you already lost the game, but look, him even coming out there and being 30% is way more than if he's not on the floor for you guys.
Absolutely. And I also loved what he said following the game two loss. And I'm not going to do the referee rant. That you can scroll my previous thoughts on that. I've aired them out plenty. At this point, I'm past it to where it's time to check rocks and play ball, and you got to find a way to win 4 games. That's the bottom line here. It sucks. I hated how things went down. I hate that the last 2 minute reports even come out because it doesn't even do anything, and
Right.
honestly, just makes me feel worse in the situation. But
It
the bottom,
does.
yeah,
All we know is that, like Kenny Smith said, they put that out just for the fans and everybody to know that they are holding the refs accountable. And it's like, all right, but there's
but
nothing that
does
you
it?
can do to change that, like,
Yeah,
because you don't act upon the 2 minute report. So I understand the frustration there, and just being like, the Knicks have gotten screwed over. I mean, I'm sure you remember that game that we lost against the Houston Rockets on the foul that Brunson had in the last few
yeah,
seconds. That same ref was actually also in the game that we had against you guys. So it's like, you're not doing anything, right? Like, it was proven that that foul on Brunson wasn't a foul, and then they just don't act upon the 2 minute report. And that would have been another win in the Knicks win column. And, the 2 seed discrepancies down the stretch wouldn't have mattered as much. But the
yeah.
NBA there is a refereeing issue. It's just a matter of what is it going to take for them to finally address it.
Yeah, I totally 100% agree there. And I do think it's a bigger issue than just that small sample size. And like, even speaking on the larger scale a little bit, feels like the game has just been refereed completely different, like midway through the season. And I know the NBA denies it, that there was no talk, but just like, I think it's completely unfair to switch on a dime midway through the year. Like, I get you can make the argument it is for the better of the game, and I'm not even going to disagree there. But when you're going by one standard for halfway through the season and all of a sudden switching it, it just feels like the consistency across the board has been brutal. And again, I don't want to make this ref talk, so we'll shift back to basketball here. But I guess like to lay you out and put a bow on this, what was your thoughts on the final sequence there and going through that?
I gotta say, I do agree that within the second half of the season, it was like they put out that statement, I believe it was around February or something
Yeah,
of the sorts. And from there on, contact was allowed way more down the stretch and way more in the lane than anybody really anticipated. And I think as a team like the New York Knicks, somebody who gets their identity from the grit and grind, we're gonna out hustle you, we're gonna be physical with you, and we're gonna hit you around. Quite frankly, like, we're gonna throw some hands. And for a team like that fits their style of play so perfectly, it almost gives you a little bit of an edge, because they're like, oh, that's just the way the Knicks play basketball. Keep going, right? Like, just
yeah,
the same thing with Tyrese Maxey. Like, he got hacked 3 times on that possession. Like, sure, you could at the same time say he pushed off of Josh Hart, but these are like, that's a basketball move. I think
right.
some of the pushing is a basketball move, but then again, there's also some within that is very, very close. And it's like the referees started picking and choosing what they wanted to be fouls rather than just putting out, hey, this is as black and white as we can make it. And then, it's for you guys to read between the lines.
Yeah, it's absolutely frustrating. And I guess to move past it here. So I've been pretty consistent on Sixers and 6 the entire time here. We're now 2 games in the series. The Sixers are down 0-2, and I only feel more convincingly about that. That I do think the Sixers team rips off 4 straight wins here. I do think they blow out this Knicks team tomorrow. That I do think it's going to be a night where they get red hot. The role players finally step up. We know the phrase how role players play better at home. Feels like a lot of guys are due to just bust things open. That it has been Joel and Maxey purely going head to head and carrying this team. I do think tonight's where tomorrow night is when the Sixers make a statement, have an impact, and really wake up in a way that they have not yet this series. Your thoughts?
I think you definitely get one at home. I had said 5 when I first came on here, so I'm not putting it past you to get one at home by any means. I'm sort of just hoping it's not this next one, because that's when it's 2-1, it's when the discomfort and the doubt starts to creep in your mind just a little bit. Sometimes just even the slightest bit is enough to be some really toxic energy within that locker room. And quite honestly, if the Knicks lose tomorrow in the fashion that you're talking about, Jalen Brunson has another bad game, I think there's going to be a little bit of a tough talk in that locker room of Tom Thibodeau has to look at Brunson and say, look, you're getting doubled down upon every single possession. You're getting pressed in the full court. They're not allowing you off the pick and roll to go anywhere. And clearly your mid-range game is just something we're settling for at this point. They're going to need to surround him. I love the adjustment of giving Bogey more minutes, a shooter like him, a veteran that's kind of seen success in the postseason, clearly with the Utah teams. And when it comes to playoff time, he's going to step up his game. And then I said it, man, Miles McBride, he's been incredible. And that's somebody that the Knicks need to stay on track. I mean, it was a kind of leap of faith that the Knicks brass took, letting Emmanuel quickly go and saying, hey, we're going to extend McBride. But clearly That's something that they had known. And I'm going to be honest, me and my friends, I'm not sure if you know Chris Persianen on Knicks Twitter. He's a good buddy of mine. He's over at Fordham. He gets to cover the Knicks a lot over there. And we had a draft party actually a few years ago in which Deuce McBride got drafted. And this was probably the only time you've seen a group of 15, 20 guys jump up and scream for a second round pick, right? Like we knew coming out of college, Deuce was a dog. And it's just about time that he gets to show that, because a lot of what he does on the floor, aside from his shooting, are those intangibles, that defense. He's going to be that pest. I said he's going to match Kyle Lowry's energy. And he was coming out and he was pressing Maxey in the full court and he was making a difference. So I'm not sure. I think tomorrow is a game that you kind of have to be desperate for if you're the Knicks. Like I said, you don't want to give the Sixers any glimpse of hope. And 3-0 sounds a lot better than 2-1. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, from the Sixers end, if they lose tomorrow, it's pack it up season. I wouldn't even play Joel Embiid moving forward. It's time to move on for next year. But I just don't think that's a world where we're talking it. That I do think that the Sixers team comes out with a focus. I like the way that Maxey handled himself post game, how he put no blame, took it responsibly. And I do want to swing things back. That we touched on Jalen Brunson here.
Yeah,
I think these Jalen Brunson struggles are real. That for starters, Kelly Oubre, you nailed it, deserves a ton of credit for the way that he's competed. And if you told me going into the year that Kelly Oubre would have carved out a role on this team as a defensive stopper, I would not believe you.
right.
But here we are. And beyond that, like there's scheme stuff they're doing. There's constantly another guy. They've been hedging on a ton of pick and roll sets with Embiid, which is not his typical nature to defendant, that he's much more comfortable in drop coverage. They're not letting like Brunson really think about things. The best two players in the series have been Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And I keep hearing this pushback of, well, you guys just wait. Jalen Brunson's going to get hot. I just don't see it that way. That I think the Sixers deserve more credit for the way they are containing him. And I've seen Nick Nurse straight up take stars out of series in plenty of other occasions dating back to his time before Philadelphia. So do you expect Brunson to break free? What does this say about him as far as is his ceiling a little bit more limited as a star than I think we've thought going in, or a lot of people acknowledge going in? Because I'm kind of feeling that way, to be perfectly honest.
In this series, I think the fact that Julius Randle isn't here is proving to be vital. I mean, the offensive gravity, I know Julius Randle is one of those guys that in the playoffs, his averages dip a little bit. Now, that's something that you live with, but his offensive gravity when he's on the floor is still something that demands defensive attention. And I think that helped Jalen Brunson a lot. And I mean, in the Miami Heat series last year, that was a defense that you could say is very close to what the Sixers have right now going on, right? And Jalen Brunson gave them, I believe it was 38, 41, like 46, 3 games in a row. And it was incredible, but it also came off of good shooting. And it also came off of the back of Julius Randle also putting up 20 to 25 points within those games. And I think the offensive gravity of Randle really helps kind of smooth things out. When you're on the floor with a guy like OG who can't really create his own offense, you have to give it to him a little bit. Dante DiVincenzo at times as well. I think that's why we put Bogdanovich out there. We put Miles McBride out there because those are guys that can take you off the dribble and see a little bit more success going down the lane by themselves. But I wouldn't say I'm overly concerned about the Brunson thing, because down the stretch yesterday, or 2 days ago, I'm sorry, he found ways to win the game without having to score the basketball. And that comes from feeding Hartenstein. I mean, there were multiple. He had, I think, 10 to 12 points, and all of them came within that fourth quarter. A lot of big putbacks and a lot of big, just little floaters from the mid block. So I think if Brunson can continue to adapt his game and find other ways to make the team better, then I'm not even mad at him. He's been getting his still kind of, but in a very inefficient manner. We need him to figure out. I mean, I gotta say, his ability to get to the line has been just remarkable. I mean, and that's partially in due to what the referees are calling, but he's seeing that his game isn't
Trae Young-esque stuff.
It's Trae Young-esque. It really is, the way he gets to around the foul line, right? He slows himself up. He sticks kind of his butt out a little bit, and then he goes for that little mid-range shot. And I can't lie, we talked about it the other day. It's unethical hoops.
Yeah.
But it's something that I feel like when you're in that position struggling offensively, it's kind of like the last trick in the bag. And that's where Jalen Brunson is at in terms of finding his offense. Now, somebody that has found their offense in the absence of Brunson is Josh Hart. I think if we can continue to see Josh Hart pulling up as confidently as he's been, that's really been the main issue with him, is there's times where he just doesn't feel like he can do anything offensively. He's sitting there at the 3-point line. He gets the ball and he looks around. Can he drive or kick it?
Yeah.
And it's like, Josh, take the shot. Now, all of a sudden, we're seeing like Come on, that one just fast break 3-pointer that he had was just like, come on, man. That's
And
frustrating.
in game one too, like that the final 3-pointer he hit, it's like
Right.
he's just not like, to be honest, that's a great part of why I'm comfortable from the Sixers end. He's just not keeping this
You're
up for
not
the
that
series.
guy typically, right?
He's
So it's
not.
like,
And
yeah.
I don't expect it to continue. We did hit it on a comment here. First off, shout out DFJ Hoops for tuning in. I did want to touch on this. Chiming in saying, hopefully we see more campaign in KJ Martin. It surprised me that KJ hasn't played at all so far. KJ Martin to me might be the solution to the Josh Hart problem. And I mean, I don't love KJ Martin as a basketball player overall, to be perfectly honest, but what I do think he's good at is he's very much a guy that you give a role, you give specific expectations, and he can deliver on that. And where I think he can match up best with Josh Hart is still on the offensive glass. That Hart's a guy that, like, he gets the back-breaking rebounds, and I do think Martin's more comfortable in following him around, chasing him, matching up with him on an athletic standpoint, that I think Martin, frankly, would have the athletic advantage in this situation, which currently the Sixers certainly do not against him. So that is something that I'd like to see as an adjustment. And also campaign that it was touched on. I would absolutely give campaign a little run. That he is a guy that has some energy, some spark, and I've been a Buddy Hield guy. It's just time to get off the island. That he's been straight up brutal and unplayable. And this bench difference between
I expected him to come out and be a big factor in this series, honestly. I thought Buddy was going to be somebody that we had to keep an eye on, because if he gets hot, we talked about it in the first episode, if he gets hot, that's going to be a tough match.
And that was definitely the Sixers' expectation as well. And it's just not happening. And like, for starters, like, Buddy Hield's been a theoretical Sixer for years. He's constantly been a guy that has been in trade talks, he could be a perfect fit here. And like, the skill set is just bizarre. Like, there's not like, for starters, he's less willing as a shooter than I expected. There's way less pop in his game athletically, that he's not capable of beating guys off the dribble. And what's particularly frustrated me the most is, like, one of his strengths as a player is his off-ball motion, that he's constantly moving, constantly running through go screens, cutting around. It feels like he just does it without a plan, specifically in these two games. Like, he's not running to create a shot for himself. He's just kind of going. And it's like what are we even doing out there? Like, there was a play, I've called this play out a couple times, but there was a play where he ran from directly underneath the basket straight up to the top of the key. He caught the basketball, but had his full out back to the basket by the time he caught it. It's like what's the point of doing that there? Like, you should be running off gravity, trying to create a look where you can catch and shoot, but you're doing yourself no good. And that's the reason that he's on the floor, is to hit shots. That, to his credit, he's been better defensively than he really ever has through his career. But like, if this is the version of Buddy Hield we're getting, I think you pull the plug and give Campaign some run. That Campaign, not quite as elite of a shooter as Buddy. The form is gross and it's terrible looking, but he's capable of beating a guy off a dribble. He can play make better. He's not, I mean, they both pretty much suck defensively, but I'm curious, like, is there anyone on the Sixers bench that scares you from a Knicks perspective? A single guy?
Man, I mean, going into this, it was Buddy.
Okay.
Kyle Lowry tends to pull out some of those random 3-pointers at times, which we've seen. He's, had some good games despite that little flop at the end. I can't get over how funny that is when Joel kind of just nudges him and he does his signature Lowry motion. But the thing is, and I got to give a shout out real quick to Aton. He put this in his Sixers post game, is that, Maxey and Embiid have been the 1 and 2 best players in this series, but 3 to 8, I would say, that's where New York is feasting right now. And that's where we're getting ahead, is because Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, OG Anunoby, Bogey, Miles McBride, they're outplaying all the role players that the Sixers have to offer. And I think that was something that I kind of harped on a little bit in our first episode, is the depth of the Knicks. Is that, I mean, Kelly Oubre said it, there's starters on the reserve team. And that's been the way it's been for New York, is that we're not going to necessarily beat you with the star power of Jalen Brunson all the time. It's going to be that depth and a war of attrition, where we're just going to wear you out, and then somebody's going to find a way to take advantage. And so, honestly, I think Campaign has seen some good playoff minutes with the Suns and some other stints. And I think that's a guy that, listen, not saying he's going to win you a basketball game, but I think he can be effective at times. Nick Batum had that little bit of a stretch, and then it seems like they expected a little bit too much out of him in game 1. I really just don't. I think it comes down to Buddy Hield really is just a sore thumb sticking out right now. And it's just, I expected more out of him. But just like you're saying, it's like he should be better. Just like plain and simple, he should be better. Like, that's the reason you were acquired, was to make a difference come playoff time for Embiid. So
Yeah, and it's frustrating that this like he just has to be better. It's cut and simple that drive. That like they need him. They were counting on him to be at least the guy that can keep the offense afloat to an extent when there are
Right.
the non-Joel minutes or the non-Maxi minutes. That if you can go on a stretch where you knock down 2 or 3 3-pointers in the span of a 5-minute run, that's
Hmm.
very impactful to this team. And so I'm hopeful. My glass half full optimism here is that there's some like sets directly run to create shots for him in his first stint in the game, just in the hopes of getting him going. But I'm more or less giving up on Buddy Hield being that type of guy for the series, which really, really hurts this team moving forward. And like also the other guys that I want to see, I mean, Ricky Council the fourth. It's rare that a rookie's going to get this type of burn, and
I've
he's been
seen
a
you guys
guy.
talking about him.
Yeah,
You're going down the bench now and really looking at what can guys bring matchup wise, but the offensive rebounding that the Knicks have is just such an advantage. And I mean, it stems from Hartenstein, it stems from the hustle of Josh Hart, and kind of the physicality that they play with down low. But it also is like, listen, Embiid's only going to be able to rebound so much on one leg.
yeah,
So it's like, where else can we get this type of production without sacrificing the offense of Embiid? Saw people talking about the potential. I think it was somebody saying playing Paul Reed alongside Embiid.
should
And it's
happen.
like, listen, we need to at least experiment at this point if you're the Sixers, because you don't have anything to lose from that sense, because it's not like you're getting anything out of Tobias. It's not like you're getting anything offensively from Batum right now that keeps him in the game. So it's worth a shot.
Yeah, and to be honest, like Nick Nurse, I've been a fan throughout the year. This has been a guy that I've been leaning on as a reason why things could be different for the Sixers team this year. I've been a little unimpressed so far this
Mhm.
playoff run, and now it's time to ball is in your court, adjust. And he hasn't been horrible. I don't want to pile on. Like the defensive scheme stuff has been impressive. He's doing his job, and the Jalen Brunson stuff is directly related to the game plan that's been put in place for
Yep.
sure. But I need to see a little more creativity for just winning around the margins in a way that I just haven't from him. And that's been like a huge. So that specifically tomorrow's game is one where I need to see it, where I need to see there's a change up, there's an adjustment, there's something that gives this team a greater chance than it is just relying on whatever version of this Joel Embiid is to carry this team. So I am hopeful that that is the case. I would like to rely on some energy guys, and we got Jamal chiming in, agreeing, saying that I'd give some of Buddy and Tobias's minutes to RC4 and Melton and even KJ. I think that's a great point there. And by the way, we have not mentioned DeAnthony Melton yet. I do think that's a big deal. And specifically from the rebounding side of things, he's a very good rebounding guard. It's tough to be super confident because this guy has not played regular basketball dating back months now. And who knows if he's what version of himself he truly is. But if DeAnthony Melton can play like DeAnthony Melton, he'll be an impactful player on the series from a matchup standpoint. Does that strike any sort of fear in your heart? Or is that a non-story to you?
I would be very much surprised if a guy can come in off a few months of not playing basketball, hop into playoff intensity, and the nerves are going to be there. It's the bright lights, right? So it would be kind of a shocker to see Melton come in. Now, not that he's not a great player and a good role player for the Sixers. I definitely think he has his contributions, and he definitely can provide something from a defensive standpoint on our guard play, and he's probably a better rebounder than some of these old heads he got running around there. So
Yeah.
from that standpoint, I could see how he can contribute. And like we said, there's not much to lose if you are Nick Nurse at this point. You have to make some type of move, or else you're just going to be sitting here. And that's when you sit there in stagnancy and also lose the series is when people start coming for your job, even if it isn't
Right.
related to what Nick Nurse is doing. But they're going to, first things first, point the finger at, hey, well, he didn't adjust. They were getting beat and he didn't adjust. And it stinks because, like you said, Joel Embiid's body is just failing him. It's just that's really what it is he's a generational talent that can't stay healthy for a full season beyond the playoffs. And it stinks because with him on the floor, you guys you're winning both of those games. Like 100, if he's 100%, you're winning both of those games. I know we're bringing up ifs, and it's if Julius Randle was playing. It's like you go back and forth with the hypotheticals. But the thing is, Joel Embiid is somebody that they just have to figure out a way to cater his game to find the postseason. Just find it. Just get us there. And that's what they've been trying to do. And I thought this season, you guys put him in the best possible position for that success. It was almost like we got the injury out of the way. Joel Embiid come back, and let's see what we could do.
And we'll do the full Embiid conversations in the offseason that I do want to make sure that there is still a series to win here. But like my honest plan, I would only play him in home games next year. That I would straight up like be that proactive in limiting injuries that like make sure he's taking the adequate days off. He doesn't need to go on road trips. Play him the 42 in front of the home fans and make sure that he's good to go come postseason time. He's got the MVP. Forget the game limit, the 65 games he's trying to get to, all that. But regardless, I do want to push that off because there is still a series to win. And Jamal chimed in again saying, I think KJ and RC4 have the athleticism to hang with Hart on the boards. I say give them a shot. Totally agree that it's time to release the dogs. Those are guys that will at least go balls to the walls, go all out, and kind of match some of this intensity that the Knicks have purely been better than the Sixers team at. So with this Knicks team, again, I do think that the Sixers and Knicks are the second and third best team in the Eastern Conference. I know the Sixers are down 0-2 right now, so it feels like this is loser stuff and in poor taste. I've been really underwhelmed by them. It feels like their heart, they're scrappy. The Knicks, yes.
Right.
They're scrappy, they compete. I think there's even like a lower top end talent than I kind of gave them credit for. And a lot of that, obviously, with Brunson not playing his best, it blows my mind that they are winning the series the way they are. And frankly, these have been coin flip games. This isn't a true 2-0. Is there, obviously, you're still focused on winning the series as well. But has there been any weaknesses exposed that you did not expect coming into this series?
I don't think it was something that I didn't expect. It's just when the playoffs come, the intensity defensively kicks up a notch. And, they were talking about, you look back at the Atlanta Hawks series that the Knicks played, and it was kind of a similar vibe. The Knicks had a magical run to end that year. They got the 4 seed, and then you come into the playoffs, and it's like the lights are very bright. I think that's exactly kind of what's happening here. I think there was a big expectation that, listen, Jalen Brunson, you're the man. After last year, like I said, Julius Randle takes away a lot of his offensive gravity. So it helps out to have that pressure off of you. Now, no Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson's looking at it like, all right, I have to go out here and perform. And I do think that there is a little bit of nervousness to it and that the lights are a little bit bright. Now, does that worry me all in all about this Knicks team? No, just because I do think they are very deep and I do think they still can compete with the likes of Boston in a 7-game series. It's just, I don't think I've been overly impressed by anybody else within the East to be scared, right? I look at that Milwaukee and Indiana series, and those are two, come on. Yeah. I mean, you look at both of those sides, look at the Magic and, the Cavs battling. I'm like, listen, been there, done that. It really just comes down to Boston. And, I mean, hey, they've been playing great, but it's the Miami Heat with no Jimmy Butler, right? Like, sure, they were up 20 the other day, but it's just, I think that it's anybody's playoffs right now as far as the Eastern Conference goes. And so, yeah, the Knicks might have been underwhelming in the first 2 games, but you've been lucky enough to be out of those up 2-0. They have to find their game now on the road. And that's when DiVincenzo tends to shoot better on the road. Josh, even though he shot well at home these first 2 games, he tends to be better on the road. So I don't know. I'm very curious to see how they react to the Philadelphia fans tomorrow night.
I hope the Sixers make Josh Hart shoot 15 threes tomorrow, man. I hope so. That I want that Marcus Smart knockoff to just come down to his true self. That's right. all I want to see. And
that's a great comparison. That's the brand of basketball that he plays, and it's crazy because you could have a guy come fresh off the bench, and Josh Hart, who's been playing 35 minutes straight, is gonna come in for an offensive board, before one of these other guys, and it's just. I can't believe his motor, really. That's been the most fascinating part. It's just the guy plays the entire game. Him, DiVincenzo, both. They'll say, if you need 48, I'll give you 48. They have no problem doing it, and they love the Tibbs way. So I think when you have guys that are bought in like that, it's like I said, it's a bunch of hungry dogs on this Knicks team. And I think the hunger is going to kind of outweigh the talent a little bit. It's almost like the Sixers, they're kind of sitting here like, yeah, we're the more talented team, and that's going to prevail in the end. But the Knicks are like, no, listen, we're going to go out here and we're going to outwork you for these victories. So that's kind of how I feel on things.
Yeah, I think that's accurate and very frustrating, to be perfectly honest. That I think that's spot on. I do want to make it clear once again, I still think the Sixers win the series. And I also will be taking an ultimate victory lap around so many Knicks fans when that is the case. You have not been one of these that have been disrespectful, but the burning Joel Embiid jerseys, I think you guys have already...
They're doing the most. You know what it is? I've been there for the playoffs. They are. They're already celebrating. I've been there for playoff games. I was lucky enough to cover the first Cavs series last year. And the thing is that when you go outside of MSG, there are people who I don't even know if these are Knicks fans. There are people there with microphones and their cameras ready. They're trying to replicate that Side Talk NYC. And they're trying to replicate all these podcasting vloggers that are going and doing the post games. That's exactly what they want. And it's all just for clicks in the end. So I understand the standpoint, but it is becoming extremely corny. I mean, the Trae Young thing, I mean, it's now 5 years removed, basically, and we're still sitting here saying F Trae Young. It's like, come on, we got to just move past this, act like we've been here before, because, it's just, I get there's both sides, because people are going to be like, oh, they're having fun. It's fans having fun celebrating their team. And it's like, yeah, we could celebrate victories, but at the end of the day, it's like there's a fine line between celebrating victories and, all right, look, the series isn't over, right?
Yeah.
Like it's literally 2-0. It was one game, one playoff game, and the streets are covered. So, I mean, like I said, I've been there. I've done it. I've been in the crowds. It's awesome, and you can't help but jump in. But at the same time, I get the issue with it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like, obviously, New York and Philly, to call a spade, two of the more, probably, maybe the two most obnoxious fan bases in anywhere.
Definitely.
So, like, I've came into this series, and again, I can't believe the lack of kind of New York Philly matchups, and specifically in the NBA. Like, we haven't seen a Knicks and Sixers matchup. I think 1989's the last time.
Yeah, it was like 30-something years.
Yeah, crazy that we haven't seen more of this. So I haven't had quite the feel of the New York fan base until this series. I thought they were more similar to Philly than they are. That with Philly, like, there's absolutely still the rub it in your face, the, like, scumbag mentality, whatever you want to call it. But with Philly, it's like we're just waiting for the next thing to go wrong. It's like we're talking our talk now so we get it out of the way, essentially. With the Knicks, it's like you give a little, they're taking a mile for running laps, celebrating and going. So I can't believe, like, how quick this is. And just tread carefully would be my word of advice from a fan base standpoint, because as I mentioned, I will be taking a victory lap if the Sixers do pull this out.
I honestly, if the Sixers do pull it out in 6 games, you have all the rights to take a victory lap. And quite frankly, if the Knicks blow it in 6 games, then there's nobody on the face of the earth that should be coping for them. I mean, that would be just an all-time disaster. And quite frankly, I think it's just hard as well from a Knicks standpoint. When you go, the Garden energy is all there. You see, they've got the legends sitting courtside. They got Melo with John Starks, and he's next to, Larry Johnson. They're bringing everybody out. Like, it's so exciting, and the energy and the passion is so high that, like, I get it. But I almost feel like we need to reserve it for, like, the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm like, what if we do? We've only been to the second round last year, right? Like, that's as far as this Knicks brass has gotten this team. I'm like, what if we make the conference finals? What if we do make the finals? We win one game, and all of a sudden it's a parade. Like, we need to figure out a way to keep the passion without just, throwing confetti after every win.
Yeah, and this Sixers team, for all that they're called a failed organization, loser organization, have been to the finals more recently than this Knicks franchise, which is pretty shocking and, in my opinion, a little embarrassing there. Yeah.
Ugh.
Shout out Allen Iverson.
Oh, AI, right.
Yeah.
01, and we were there in 99. That's funny. Yep.
But, yeah, so I've been pretty open. I'm still 6 years and 6. Has your mentality changed at all in this series? What's your prediction from here on out?
I do think you guys get one at home. I'm hoping it's not tomorrow, like I said, but I do still have Knicks in 5. I think we're going to see, if it's not Jalen Brunson scoring the basketball, I think it's going to be DiVincenzo tomorrow. I had called for him to have 6 threes the other night on like 60% shooting. I texted my friend earlier in the day and I was like, Silver gave me the script. DiVincenzo shooting 7 of them tonight. And he, like, for him to end up, I was feeling myself down the stretch. For him to end up with the big shot, I was like, look, I told you, it wasn't 7 of them, but we'll take it. No, it's just when he gets going, especially on the road, which he's better at, it's a hard Knicks team to stop. And I think that's going to be a big focal point tomorrow, because a lot of the focus, again, is going to be on Jalen Brunson. How can the Sixers stop Brunson, slow him down, contain him? And I think the other guys got to find a way to feast.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see what script that Adam Silver does send into the referees tomorrow, and see how things shake out.
He wants to extend the series. He doesn't want this just going 4 or 5. He's gonna do his best. But listen, I'm really curious as well to see how the refereeing goes tomorrow.
Sixers should get every single call, and I don't want to hear a person complain about it. I don't actually mean that. Like, I do think the game should actually be refereed fairly. I think it would be obnoxious if it's overdone either, but it is going to be a pressure point, like, from here on out. Like, there's going to be eyes on that like no other. So it will be interesting to see what kind of adjustments were made from all perspectives, from the refereeing, from both sides of things, because as you mentioned, like, the Knicks do play this physically imposing brand of basketball, and like, if the end result of basically whatever this protest or grievance or whatever you want to use is that there's going to be a tighter whistle, that definitely plays in the Sixers' favor. So it is going to be interesting to see. Any thoughts on what you expect there?
Well, I definitely like something that a lot of Knicks fans are afraid to admit is like I came out of that game, even I'd say in the third quarter. I looked around after one of these whistles and I said to my dad as we were watching the game, I was like, the Knicks got good calls tonight. Like the calls are in our favor tonight, which is very rare because whenever you play the Miami Heat down in South Beach, that's the whistle I'm used to for the Knicks. The South Beach whistle, the South Beach refs, I always call them. But the Knicks got everything was in their favor. And that's something that you, like I said, very, very rare. And you can't rely on or expect to continue. But we got to continue to try and get to the line, continue to try and extend the game as much as we can, because the Sixers are going to be trying to do the same. Joel Embiid is somebody that likes to get to the line, and especially being injured, he's going to want to, take his time and really slow things down to the best of his ability, because that's when he thrives. So, like I said, I still think Knicks in 5, but the job isn't finished. Word to Kobe Bryant, job not finished.
That's right. Well, Matt, I appreciate you chopping it up with me, hopping on here. Anything else that you got going on you want to promote real quick before they check rock and square up for game 3?
Man, I mean, listen, since the last time, the only thing that's changed is I booked my flight to Alabama May 10th to 13th. I'm going to be out there with Mac Wilson, switching it up to NFL a little bit. Going to be out there in Alabama with Mac Wilson, doing some of his PR work, helping with some videography and some photography over there. Going to be giving away some school supplies to some kids, so that's going to be really cool. Always love helping out some communities. And other than that, not much, man. A lot of basketball. I'm excited for the games tonight. Not as interested in the Boston and Miami, but hey, the Pelicans and Thunder are going to be a battle, and I always love watching SGA play. I just wish Zion was healthy this series.
Yeah, absolutely. And appreciate everyone for tuning in. Make sure you're dropping a like button, subscribing wherever you're watching. Also, make sure to check out over on Sixers Digest. I've been cranking out content over there, so a ton of breakdowns. And right here on Pick Swap Media, have another breakdown with both the Sixers perspective and Knicks perspective, essentially kind of talking about how things have gone. So tune in for all that. I'll be back throughout the length of the series. For me, for Matt, signing off, and talk next time. Peace.
Take it easy, guys.